Hi and welcome to Nutrition with Lucy. This is a channel where we talk about food, nutrition and good health. And in today's discussion, I want us to talk about diabetes. How can we use diet to manage diabetes? In recent studies, diabetes is one of the non-communicable diseases that is on higher rise. And maybe our lifestyle changes, the way we are living, it has contributed to this disease. So what is diabetes, or what happens when you eat food? When you eat food, sana the carbohydrates or any other food, your body should produce insulin to help the sugars to get into the cell for energy to be produced. But in cases of diabetes, unapata the insulin either eco-produced but not enough, or at all the insulin is not produced. So this is how you end up being diabetic or having diabetes. We have several types of diabetes. We have things like gestational diabetes. Hii ni diabetes yenye inapata wajawazito, then inaisha after mtu amejifungua. Then we have type 1 diabetes, mostly seen in children. It's called sometimes the juvenile diabetes. But like niseme, it's no longer a disease for the kids. Hata inaonekana kwa watu wazima. And this type 1 diabetes, it is insulin dependent. Mtu anaishi na insulin. That unasikia like sometimes mtu anajidunga insulin. That is in cases of type 1 diabetes. Then we have type 2 diabetes. These diabetic patients, they are not insulin dependent, but it reaches a point like wanatumia the diabetic medication plus the diet. Kwa hiyo we have type 1 diabetes seen in children, but also siku hizi inaonekana kwa watu wazima, and we also have the type 2 diabetes. So how does our diet affect diabetic patients? Actually, a diabetic patient can eat everything. You can eat the energy giving foods. These are the carbohydrates, the protective foods. These are the vitamins and minerals from our vegetables. Anaweza kula the bodybuilding. These are the proteins from the animal proteins and the plant-based proteins. The question is, how much of this? Na hapa ndo tunarudia tena to our plate model. How is our plate? Una observe the portion. Like half of our plate. I think I have done a video of this. Half of the plate should be occupied by the veggies. Make your vegetables colorful. Nikisema vegetables, simaanishi like sukuma wiki, like the spinach. Vegetables ziko very diverse, ni mingi. Kwa hivyo half of the plate should be occupied by your vegetables. Then the other half, proteins. Hizi ni proteins, kuna animal proteins. These are the chicken, the red meat, the white meat. Then you have the plant-based proteins. Hizi ni vitu kama the njahe hizo. But I would recommend, like animal proteins, you can take maybe twice a week. Sababu unapata the animal proteins ziko na more of the saturated fats, which is not good for your heart. Kwa hivyo you can do animal proteins twice a week, and plant proteins hizo unaweza zitake generously. Then the other half, the carbohydrates. These are the energy giving foods, and this is where we get our sugars ama the glucose in our body. Kama ni the diabetic patient, ikikam ni carbohydrates, go for the whole food. Kama ni mkate, don't go for brown mkate. Kuna brown mkate and we have the whole meal bread. That hiyo ndo the whole, iko whole haijatolewa any. The fiber content in it, it's very high, and the more the fiber, the better for you. Kwa hivyo carbohydrates, avoid vitu simple sugars. These are vitu processed. These are the sweets, the cakes, anything processed. That's a simple sugar. And in diabetics, once you take it to simple, for example, let me give an example of white rice and brown rice. Ukitake like two individuals, mwenye amekula the white rice and the brown rice, mwenye amekula white, the blood sugars zitaenda juu very high. Sababu hakuna the fiber yenye iko supposed to act as a buffer. Kwa hivyo utapata the white sugar, the white rice imepandisha sukari juu sana compared to the mtu mwenye amekula the brown rice. Kwa hivyo go for the whole foods. na itakusaidia in controlling your blood sugar. Then are there foods that triggers someone's sugars? Foods nimesema like anything you eat, like the 55% of the carbohydrates, hizo ni energy, hiyo inakupea that's direct sugars into your body. But are there foods that can trigger your sugars? Yes, vitu kama pineapples, the mangoes, naweza sema that's a no-go zone for diabetic patients, sababu ziko na tendency ya kupandisha sukari at a higher rate. But kama lazima you go for them, at least take a piece and not immediately after eating. Maybe after umejisikiza like umeona like you've gone hypo, that is the low blood sugars and iko very common kwa diabetic patients. That's when you can go maybe for a pineapple, a mango. But kama kuna fruit ingine, I would advise go for another fruit. Try to avoid the pineapples, the mangoes. So what causes hypoglycemia? Nimesema like the diabetes it is hyper, sukari iko juu, but unapata like most of the diabetic patients wanaenda hypo ama their sugars go very low. What causes this hypoglycemia? Mostly unapata you've taken your medication but haujakula, so this medication ina control what sugars. Hapo ndo unaweza jipata umeenda hypoglycemic, and it's very dangerous. Inaweza oka maybe ukitembea ujipate umefaint, ama while driving unajipata like ume black out tu ukiwa kwa gari. Kwa hivyo hypoglycemic sio pia si mzuri in diabetic patient. And how can you avoid it? One, make sure when you are taking your medication umekula. So hizi dawa zinaenda kucontrol the sugars that umepata from the food that you've eaten. Another thing, skipping of meals. You're not supposed to skip any meal. Take your foods and also be consistent in how you take your food. So utapata most of these medications they work in hours, like 8 hours. Kwa hivyo kama ni kukula, be consistent. Kama ni supper unakulanga saa 2, make sure at least stick hiyo saa 2. Saa 2 saa 3 make sure you've eaten your dinner. Kama ni breakfast, the same way. Kama ni lunch, the same way. Be consistent in the way you take your medication. Sababu nimesema zina work in hours, unapata zingine zina work in 8 hours. Kwa hivyo be consistent in the way you take your medication. Then exercise. Exercise is very important. Remember, anytime you exercise, you are using energy, and this energy that you are using inakuja from the foods that you've eaten. Kwa hivyo exercise very important, and also consistent in exercise. Hapo ndo itasaidia even to use the sugars that you have consumed. You can go for things like brisk walk for 30 minutes. Maybe kama utaki kutembea, if you are living in apartment kwenye kuna stairs, you can go up and down maybe mara 3. You can go for swimming, jogging. All those exercises itakusaidia in controlling your sugars. Then medication, it reaches a point where unapata like you have to use medications, and these medications are meant to help you. So unapata like medication and diet lazima ziandamane, lazima uzitumie vizuri. And I think we have so many herbalists. Unapata like unaambiwa that same like when you take this thing your sugars will go, ama you will control your sugars, but there is no scientific data, no research that has shown that when you take something of like kitu kama the stinging nettle, very common in diabetic patients, kuna that information about the stinging nettle, but hakuna scientific data yenye imesema yes, it has been proven that it can control your sugars. Kwa hivyo hata if you decide to go herbal, make sure you monitor your sugars. Now it's very important for a diabetic patient, have a glucometer in your house. If you hata ukitake something like nimesema like there is foods that can trigger your blood sugars. Hata kama umekula kitu, you can monitor your sugars. Kwa hiyo glucometer very important. Kama uko diabetic ama hata kama mzazi wako ako diabetic, unaweza mnunulia kitu ka glucometer na anaonyeshwa how to monitor the sugars. Kwa hivyo kama ni medication, make sure you take your medications, monitor your sugars. Na remember, diabetes is no longer a disease for the old. Yes, kuna the risk factors associated na diabetes. Some of these are modifiable. Kitu kama physical inactivity, you can decide from today I'll be exercising. That is something you can modify. Poor eating habits, you can modify that one. Obesity, it's another risk for diabetes. You can decide, like, I want to control my BMI na equal a healthier one. There are other things that are non-modifiable, like genetics. Family history plays a role. Like when you are coming from a family yenye iko, like tuseme your great grand was diabetic, like your shosho, your mom, you are at a higher risk for being diabetic, and there is nothing you can do about it. Kitu kama age or old age, if you are 40 plus, there is nothing hakuna kitu unaweza fanya about your age. This is something that is not modifiable, but hizi vitu zenye nimesema ziko modifiable. Kwa hivyo eat well, take your medications. Na nikisema kukula vizuri, simaanishi like diabetic patient should have a special meal. Remember, actually I say a diabetic meal plan, it's the healthiest way of eating. Sababu hata mtu mwenye na consume a normal diet, you need to observe your portion size. You need to take whole meals. You need to take your water generously. Kwa hivyo a diabetic, it's just that a diabetic patient needs to pay much attention to these foods. So once you don't control your sugars, uko at a high risk of developing complications. Vitu kama you can go blindness. Vitu kama impotence in men, cardiac diseases, vitu kama hizo, amputation. Napata like this is because like you are destroying the blood vessels that are supplying blood to these areas. That unakuta like unasikianga actually ukiwa diabetic ama once you've been diagnosed with diabetes, like watu wengi hujua like utakatwa mguu, but when you control your sugars, easy complications si lazima zikupate. Kwa hivyo take your medication, exercise, and watch what you are eating, and this way you will be able to control your blood sugars. Kwa hivyo thank you very much for watching this session of this discussion about the diabetes and diet. Be sure that blood sugars will be controlled. Na diabetic, once controlled, is not a killer disease. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel, share, like, and comment. Thank you.